All right, let's go ahead and get started today. The topic of today's webinar is Organized for Success. And so we're going to be talking about organization and how to set some goals and accomplish them. Now, the first thing that I want to do today actually is we are going to have Jonathan Ruiz, who's already on the webinar today, talk a little bit about the core value of always learning. Now, in this area of always learning, we want to, every week on our webinar, we want to take a little bit of time to learn something new. Of course, today we're going to be talking about getting organized and organizing your schedule. But before we get into that, I've asked Jonathan Ruiz to share a short tip with us. Now, let me tell you a little bit about John. For those of you that don't know him, John has a very successful merchant services business down in Florida, and he sells point of sale systems, web design, payroll services.
Yep, I'm here, James. How you doing today?
I am doing great, John. Well, we're looking forward to it. Let's hear a tip from the field.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us this quick webinar, and I want to tell you before you get out in the field, it's really a great thing to have a definite purpose set in your mind. This is something that I do every time that I get out there because I know it's stressful. I know sometimes we get very discouraged out there. So it's always, having a positive mindset always goes further than anything else. So have a definite purpose set in your mind instead of saying, wow, another day, another dollar. I'm going to go out to see how many business I can walk in and statements I can retrieve. Think of something that moves you. Think of your goals, where you're trying to be in your life, where you're trying to go. Because I've seen, more than a few agents that start in this business, and to be honest, they don't stick around for that long. The reason why is because they don't see results. They don't see results, meaning they're not getting 10 deals their first month. They're not getting, a bunch of statements their first week. They're not getting, all the support that they would, expect to have. In those situations, the only way that you guys are going to get all of that stuff is by putting hard work out on the field, doing your networking, doing marketing and stuff like that. So it's very important that you have a set goal in your mind that moves you to get out there, because a lot of the times, James, you could agree with me, 9 out of 10 times we don't go out there because we're afraid. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of,
Right.
Maybe we don't have enough gas, we might run out. There's a lot of things that, gets us to be in that position. So, it's very important to have a set goal in your mind and go after it each and every day. I got to tell you this from experience. My tip from the field, it's basically trust your intuition. If the dealer or the person that you're dealing with is really a no-go, don't try to push it. We all know that we're here to make money and we need to make money. A lot of the times we rely on the upfront compensation to keep us going. But if you see that something is really not matching with the customer, please trust your intuition.
Yeah.
I had a situation where a customer, I walked in, cold turkey. I didn't, I've never been there before. I walked in, he tells me that, oh, great, I was just looking for you. And I kind of looked a little bit shocked. So I kept asking him questions. Found out that he wanted a credit card machine because the other company was charging him too much. And so I went through with the deal. But everything seemed so easy for him. So easy. I mean, for him to sign the paperwork, it was like, I didn't even have to tell him to sign the paperwork. He just asked me, where's the paperwork? It just so happens that now, because of the economic situation that we're going through, there's a lot of scams going out there. So, usually you got to be really careful and qualify your customers, because this can actually hurt you. You might think, oh, well, it's, the credit card processing company's problem. It also becomes your problem when they're charging you back your commission. So here's what happened. He actually had a few issues with the credit card processing company, because they stated that this customer was actually running fake credit card numbers through his machine to get the money out of it. What happened? Risk automatically closed the account. So it's very important that if you feel something's not right, you actually listen to your intuition. And another thing, right off the negative part, that's actually just, I wanted to, keep your eyes open for those things, because it's very important. But Also, when you're out on the field, I came to find out from my local sub agents and also myself that too much formality does not work. Business is about relationships. And while sometimes formality is, in certain situations, is correct, in most cases, being too formal just only causes problems with wall building. Then you cannot really relate to the customer. Then you really just become an average Joe that's just a salesperson. You need to, go more in depth with the customer, meaning be more of a friend instead of a guy that's just switching his service. Too often, people in business feel that they must avoid showing who they really are. They become stiff, formal, humorless, and yes, you can act as if, because nobody will know if you're, if you are the CEO or not, unless, you obviously show otherwise. But people become comfortable with the person who you really are. They don't really care how much time you've been in the business. They don't care how much, knowledge you really have. All they care is that you're an honest person, you're trustworthy, and you know how to do business. And obviously, I say these things because I've seen it in my situation and my market with my sub-agents as well. Show humor in your communications when appropriate. Don't take yourself too seriously. Let your spirit be shown. Be motivated. Show enthusiasm. It's always something that's going to bring you success. And at the end of the day, when your day is done, it's 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and you look back on what you did the whole day, you're going to enjoy working more. And your customers, as you're going to notice, your customers are going to be, you're going to notice that they're a little bit more friendly with you, that they'll refer you to more people, that, if there's any questions, they don't hesitate to ask you, because a lot of the times, if you sign up a customer, they kind of don't want to bother you too much. That's because you haven't really built a relationship with the customer. And that's not good, because if they feel that they're bugging you for whatever reason it might be, don't expect to have that account for too long. They're just basically going to do the same thing they did with you, and they're going to switch over to somebody that they feel more comfortable with. So after a period of time, the whole point about this business is building a long, lengthy strength. How can I say this? Help me out here, James. Just a
big base of customers.
Yeah, exactly, and a strong residual base. Something that you could say, well, I can rely on this money because you know what? They're not going to switch. And so basically, you have to be here for the long run. You just can't stay here for 6 months or a year. You have to be here for the long run, and obviously do those things to keep your customers happy and keep them here for a long time. That's pretty much it, James.
That's awesome, man. Thanks very much, John. I appreciate it. Actually, a couple things I was thinking of when he was talking about that. One, I think the agent's actually on the webinar today, but one issue that came up last week was, and I don't know exactly what ended up happening with it, but one of our agents, there was a guy who couldn't get, he didn't want to give us his social security number when we signed up his merchant account. And he said that it was because he was buying a house and he didn't want it to lower his credit. And so the agent offered to co-sign and put his name on there as the signer on that account. And so just in case there's any of you out there that might not understand it, how this works, there are business owners out there that are that are not going to get approved. There are people out there that have done things with their credit card machine that they're not allowed to do. I'll give you an example. John gave you one. I had a business owner a couple years ago that I gave them a credit card terminal, and then they had several of their relatives come in and they ran a refund for $1,000 through the machine. To go to that customer or to go to their relative's card, and then they closed the bank account and closed their merchant account. They couldn't get the money from the merchant because he had closed his bank account. So there's a lot of things like that that'll go on. So John is absolutely right. Trust your gut. If there's somebody you don't want to work with, don't work with them. You got to be careful. Obviously, you never want to put your social security number on an application, because then you would be liable. And if I would have put my social security number on that application, so, you got to be careful about that. Understand that, if somebody's afraid, they're like, well, I don't want to give you my information. I'm not signing this. I'm not doing that. a lot of times there's a good reason for that. A lot of times they know that they have a recent bankruptcy and they're not going to be approved, or maybe they have some type of fraudulent dealings going on. So trust your gut in those situations. If you feel like somebody you should work with them, then don't work with them. So great advice. Thanks again, John. 2 books I wanted to give you real quick. Really about today, we're talking about being organized. 2 books that have had a huge impact on my life in this area of always learning. The Personal Efficiency Program, it's called PEP. You can go on Amazon and buy this book. It's a great book. Also the book Getting Things Done, it uses the GTD. That's a great book there. Those are 2 really good books on organization, and I would highly recommend both of those. Now, let me see here. I think I got one question. Mark says, would you tell the merchant that doesn't want to give, what would you tell a merchant that doesn't want to give you the social security number? This is what I always tell them. That's a good question. That's actually a really good question, Mark. And here's what I always tell them, the same thing. I say, I'm a little confused, Mark. You're currently accepting credit cards, right? And they say, yes. I say, okay, well, I apologize. Maybe you didn't realize this, but it's actually a Visa and MasterCard regulation that they must have your social security number on file. So they already have your social security number. You gave it to the last guy when he signed you up for merchant services. So I'm not asking for any kind of crazy information, and I do apologize. I know you don't want to give out that information, but that's just, I can't really do anything about that. That's Visa and MasterCard regulations, not mine. And like I said, it's not new information. They already have it on file. And then I would just blow right past it. If you don't want to deal with something, then just don't deal with it. In other words, if they bring up something like, oh, I don't want to put my social security number on there, I just try to glaze over it and then blow past it. I say something like that, and then I'm just like, well, yeah, I know, nobody wants to give out that information anymore. I understand, but unfortunately, Visa and MasterCard require it, and they've already got it. So if you can just go ahead and put that down right there, and then just go ahead and initial the bottom for me, and then I look away. Let me give you a real quick sales tip before I move on here. And I'm taking a little more time than I was going to at this beginning part, but this is a really important question. You guys need to understand this. This little tip will help you so much in closing, okay? If you want to get the merchant to sign something, or you want to get them to write down their social security number or whatever, ask them to do it and then turn away. Sometimes you can even turn and walk away. For instance, if I'm in a business and I think that the guy's a little bit hesitant to sign the application, he feels like I'm hovering a little bit, he feels pressured. Sometimes I'll say something like, well, all I need from you here is just to complete the information here on page 1 of the application, and then I'll put a little X next to the ones he needs to. I'll be like, I need this information, this information, this information, and hey, you know what is that you got over there? And then I'll say, hey, while you're filling that out, do you mind if I go take a look at this real quick? And I'll walk over and look at their whatever, their pizza menu or their shelf or whatever it is. I'll try to look, or at the very least, I'm going to look away and look down at my schedule. When you do that, it makes the person feel a little bit more comfortable, and they're going to usually sign the documents rather than disturb you with what you're doing. So that's just a little sales tip. Okay, enough of that. Always living. I found a really cool website I wanted to share with you guys. It's called workflowy.com. Workflowy.com. It's really cool. You'll have to go there and check it out. But basically what you do is you basically make an outline of your life, all the important areas of your life. It's a great way to manage projects and things like that. It's very simple to use, probably the simplest website I've ever seen, actually. And as far as it charges or that makes money, it's free to use, but they use advertising and things like that. So learn to live in the moment, okay? Learn to live in the moment. We're going to talk more about that as we get into the slide, so I'm going to go past that. Learn to make decisions about next action steps. Let me encourage you guys to, in this area of organizing for success, learn to make decisions about the next action step. Let me encourage you to not put decisions off. Too many guys I talk to are thinking about, well, eventually I'm going to have to make a decision about this. No, just decide right now what you're going to do. If you're thinking about getting out in the field today, okay, decide what you're going to do about that. When are you going to get out in the field? Well, I'm going to get out at 8 o'clock. Good, that's done. That's over with. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Just do it. Make the decision, stick with the decision. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the slides. Last, always leveraging. Now, this is a really important philosophy that I have about organizing time. My wife and I went on a date to Pittsburgh last night to see a play that was awesome. And on the way back, we were talking about this and talking about how too many people use their mind like a storage unit instead of like a computer. Your mind is an incredible, incredible thing. Your mind is able to process things. Your mind is able to come up with creative ideas. Your mind is able to pitch business owners and get them to be interested in your product. But your mind cannot do any of those things if you have it filled to the brim like a storage unit, okay? Your mind needs to not be a storage unit. You need to have an organizational system that you trust enough to forget about things. When I get to work every morning, I look at my schedule and I see what I'm going to do that day. Before I get to work, I literally have no idea what is on my schedule that day, and I couldn't care less. I'm not stressed about it. I'm not thinking about it. I don't even care about it. And the reason why is because it's in my schedule. I know it is. I know that everything I need to accomplish my tasks that day is in my system. And so when I get to work, I can start working, and I'm just going to go through my schedule and do what I've scheduled myself to do. So my mind is able to be free to think of new ideas, to be in the moment, to really focus on the task at hand. All right. So it's very important. Now, I have all kinds of information about organizational systems, but you're going to have to find something that really works for you. And hopefully this webinar today will help you a little bit with that. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. First of all, oh wait, I got one more question. Hold on one second, I think. Mark says, do you let the merchant fill in your apps? Yes, absolutely. If you're asking about the paperwork, yes, I let the merchant fill all that out on the spot. I think that's what you're asking. So, all right, here we go. What is a priority? If you got any other questions as I'm going through this about anything at all, doesn't matter if it's related or not, go ahead and type it out over to the right in the question box, and at the end of the webinar, I will do my best to answer your questions. What is a priority? What is a priority? First of all, a priority isn't something that's on a list. A priority is not something that's on a list. You cannot make a list of priorities and that makes them a priority. Now, you can make a list and say, these are my priorities, but making the list does not make them a priority any more than me wearing a wedding ring makes me married. Okay, it shows that I'm married, but it does not make me married. Okay, a priority is not something that's on a list. The list does not make it a priority. A priority isn't what you say it is. If I called and asked you today and said, what are your top priorities? You would probably give me this list like, well, my family's a top priority, my marriage or my significant other, or my work, my business, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but you saying it does not make it a priority. That's not what makes it a priority. A priority is something so important that you do it. Think about that for a second. A priority is something so important that you do it. A priority is something so important that you schedule it. Okay? Most people, their top priority for the day, this is sad to say, but in many cases, one of the top 2 or 3 priorities for their day is to watch TV. And how do I know that that's a top priority? Because they do it, because they plan time to do it, and because they do it a lot. So that means it's important to them. That means it's a priority. What you do is your priorities. You cannot separate the two. You can't say, well, my priority is my marriage. Okay, when's the last time you and your spouse spent time together? Oh my, we just don't have time right now. Well, then your marriage is not a priority because you don't do it, you don't schedule it. So understand that a priority is not something, you can choose what your priorities are, but just you choosing and just you saying does not make it a priority. What you do is your priorities. What you schedule is your priorities. How many levels of priorities should I have? You should have 2 levels of priorities. And again, this is funny. I was talking to my wife about this last night because she and I have different organizational systems, but we both agree on a lot of this key stuff. And we were talking about it last night. And, I believe in having 2 types of priorities: important, not important. My wife and I were talking about this last night. And one of the things she was saying was that she told me that she really appreciates the fact that a lot of times I'll drop things that I had in my schedule for work to come and help her with something that she needs done. And she'll do the same for me. And we were talking about that, and she said, oh, I can't believe that you would leave. You have all this real work that you do, and then you would leave that to come help me out. And I said, no, I don't have real work to do. I do things at work that are important. but the things that my wife does, they're important. It's all I look at is it important or not? If it's not important, I don't want to do it. If it is important, I want to get it done. And so don't spend a whole lot of time prioritizing everything and, okay, is this an A priority, a B priority, or a C priority? And, then under A, let's see, is this a number 1 A priority or a number 2 A priority? Good night. By the time you get all that stuff organized, you could have just had it done. Now, granted, once you get to the point where you have a lot of employees, you have a large company, of course you're going to have to prioritize your time because there's simply more things that you need to do than you can possibly ever get done. So you have to do some choosing there. But again, I still choose whether or not it's important or not important, okay? Do the important things, okay? Very, very simple. Do the important things, don't do the non-important things. It's just that simple. Now, the problem is a lot of people end up feeling guilty because of the things they do. My wife and I, we really enjoy watching a couple television shows. We like watching The Mentalist. I really enjoy that show. There's a couple other shows that we really like watching. And you know what? I think it's actually important to do that. I really do. Because my mind goes like a million miles an hour with business and work. And when I get home, a lot of times, now we don't actually watch on TV. We have the DVDs or Netflix. And so we'll watch a show and that will relax my mind and get me into like the home mode. And then my wife and I can have a good conversation because I'm not obsessed with the business. So I actually believe that that's something that's important to do. So I try to look at things and say, is it important or is it not important? And I want to make sure I have a priority and I want to have a reason to do these things that I'm doing. Boundaries. Now we're going to get into some practical scheduling stuff here on the next couple slides, but I just want to do one more that I think will help you a little bit with your time, especially some of you that you had a job in corporate America and now all of a sudden you've made this huge change and now you're selling, you're having an independent sales career. You got to place boundaries around your time. Now let me talk about scheduling. This is where we start to get a little bit more practical, okay? When you're scheduling your time, what you want to do is you want to start off with the realistic time boundaries and then plan everything else. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, everybody sleeps at night. Okay, so you might as well go ahead and put that in your schedule. I have a recurring appointment in my schedule. Now, different days I go to bed at different times, but I have a recurring appointments in my schedule. So every week at the beginning of the week, I already have the time blocked out that I'm going to sleep. Because I know I'm going to sleep. I can't get. It's not like I'm going to say, well, I really need to work, so I think I'm just not going to sleep this week. That doesn't work. You have to sleep. Everybody eats, so plan time when you're going to eat. I personally enjoy going home for lunch every day. I didn't used to do that when I was out in the field. It wasn't practical, but now I'm at my office usually at that time of day, and my office is like 4 or 5 minutes from my house. So I like to go home for lunch every day. So I have a good hour in my schedule to go home, have lunch, talk to my wife, see how her day is going, and then come back to work. So I have that time in my schedule. So you're going to eat. So why don't you go ahead and just put that in my schedule. I have a recurring appointment every day from about 12:30 to 1:30 for lunch. On a day like today with the webinar, it's 12:30 to 1:30. Other days it's 12 to 1. Then I also have a dinner from 5 to 6. I have that in my schedule. Now sometimes I got to move that around a little bit, but I have it as a recurring appointment because I can't plan to have all this time in my day because, next thing I know, my whole day's planned and it's like, well, wait a second, when am I going to eat? You got to have time in your schedule for that stuff. Everyone has appointments that they're committed to. I'm a youth pastor, so that means I'm at church on Sunday. I don't work on Sundays because I'm at church and, I'm working. Now I have time in the afternoon and sometimes something really important will come up and I'll head to the office on a Sunday afternoon, but because that's an option for me, but it's not an option for me to go in on Sunday morning because I'm at church. And so I can't do anything about that. I've already chosen that as an important priority, so I put that in my schedule. So, there's certain things you're going to have in your schedule that, you got to start with realistic time boundaries. Okay? Next. Once you have those in your schedule, write down the most important task in each area of your life. Now, what you want to do here is you want to write down the major areas of your life. Now, let me give you a couple tips here. First of all, in sales, prospecting for new business, that is your top your most important task because that's a task that's going to generate everything else. If I go out and prospect every week or every day, then I'm going to generate a lot of new prospects. which means I'm going to get statements, which means I'm going to make sales, which means I'm going to do installations, which means I'm going to do customer service. So it's like all those other things are going to kind of take care of themselves. So I've got to make sure that I prospect though, because if I don't prospect and I don't get out in the field, then none of those things are going to happen. Prospecting is like the engine that drives everything else in this business. So you want to make sure you put some serious boundaries around your prospecting time. So that's the next thing you want to put in your schedule is these big priorities. Here's another example. In your marriage, think about what's most important for me. Having a weekly date. Maybe it's your morning routine. I'm not a morning person, but maybe you're a morning person. My wife and I, it's more of time that we spend together in the evenings. We have a Thursday. Now that our business is a little bit more stable, we take Thursdays off and we spend the whole day together on Thursday. So that is a very important. That's probably the most important thing I do in my marriage is taking Thursday off because it's a day that I spend the whole day with my wife, and we really reconnect every week on Thursdays is kind of our time to get connected, make sure that we're on the same page and moving forward in our lives. So I really protect that. I have a lot of boundaries around my Thursdays because that's an important day to me. Okay. Now, place boundaries around those areas. Make sure that nothing is going to interfere in those areas. Now, talking about this area of boundaries, let me explain it a little bit more in a little bit of a different way. 80% of your time should be planned out before the week even begins. So, one of the things you want to make sure, now you've got 168 hours in the week. Now, you're going to have a lot of those hours are going to be taken up by whatever it is, you're sleeping, you're eating, you have your prospecting time, you have all these key areas that are in place. Now, you want to make sure that your schedule is planned out where before the week even begins, at least 80% of your time is just already scheduled and already done. One of the big issues with scheduling and why so many people have such a hard time with it is that every week they try to make a new schedule. Well, that would take you an enormous amount of time, and it would be an enormous waste of time. There's no reason to do that. In fact, it's actually counterproductive. You need to have a routine to your life. You need to have a cadence to your life where every week, for me, every Monday I work crazy hours. Every Monday I get to the office at 8. I leave the office at 11 p.m. I get there 8 in the morning, 11 p.m. at night. Every single Monday. I don't remember the last Monday that I didn't work until 10:30, 11 o'clock. That's just what I do on Monday. Now, because I know that that's what I do on Monday, my administrative assistant knows that I do that on Monday. So when she has a lot of stuff going on that I need to do, a lot of phone calls, she'll schedule them for a Monday evening, or she knows I have all day Monday. So I put a lot of stuff into my day on Monday. If things are happening later in the week on, like, say today, I get something that happens, a lot of times I'll push it back and say, hey, let me take care of this on Monday because I know I'm going to be here all day on Monday. I have little scheduled things in that I do on a very regular basis. My wife and I have a routine to our life where when we start the week, we don't have to ask each other, what's going on every single day of the week. Christina doesn't have to ask me if I want to go on a date on Monday night because she knows I don't. I work on Monday night. But she does know that if she has something that she wants to do, that I take off on Thursday. So she doesn't have to wonder, I wonder if James is really going to take off this Thursday because there's something I'd like to do, but he might end up working. No, she doesn't have to wonder that. She knows I'm off on Thursday. So if she wants to do something, she tells me and we do it. So, you have a routine where you want to have like 80% of your time scheduled. Now I put on here, that leaves you about 33 hours to plan out every week. And I know that sounds like a lot, but really when you sit down and do your schedule, you'll see that that's really not that much. Because if you look at your evenings, you look at your weekends, many of you have, 20 hours of unscheduled time every weekend. And that's great. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's good. But I'm just saying you shouldn't have more than 30, 40 hours a week of unplanned time at the beginning of the week. Everything should just be automatic and it's just pre-scheduled in. You know what you're going to do every day so you can get in a good, solid routine. Don't make the mistake of leaving your options open. Tell time where to go rather than wondering where it went. If you're the person that's, I'm going to leave my options open this week and we'll just see what happens and I'll just, see when I want to get up and see how many businesses I want to go to, you are going to fail. You're not going to reach your objectives. You're not going to achieve your goals because you're leaving your options too open. You need to close in those options and say, look, tell yourself, this is what I do every week. 80% of my time is scheduled. I can't do anything about that. I've already decided that these are important things to do, and I've decided the best times to do them, and I'm going to do them every single week, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. These are the things I'm doing every week because I've decided that they're important, and I've decided that they're going to help me achieve my goals. I'm not going to leave my options open every day, every week where I can just move everything around. I want to have a schedule to my life, and I want to have a routine. Never, never, never spend more than 20% of your time or money on a new venture or new idea until it is proven for at least 3 months. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Now, some of you made a big career change when you came over here, and that's great. Now, once you make a career change and you decide, like, this is what you're doing, let me give you a huge tip here, okay? Once you get into this credit card processing thing, you need to first of all establish a good schedule for yourself. You know, you're going to go prospecting these times each day. I'll give you an example. I talked to one of our agents, Bradford Jones. He might be on the webinar today actually, and I talked to him a few days ago. He had 13 sales last month in January. He had 13 sales. It's his second month in the business. He had 13 sales. And I asked him, you know, man, what's your secret? You know, what did you do? Well, first of all, I said, are these all individual businesses? And he said, yes, they were. These were all individual businesses that he sold. He made 13 individual sales. And he has other big deals coming in that are going on. And I said, man, what's your secret? And he said, you know, really that wasn't a big secret. He got out there and worked full time. He worked went out there every day and prospected every day and just got in a rhythm, got out there prospecting and selling. And, you know, I'll tell you, 90% of the time when I talk to agents that are successful and I say, what's your secret? There isn't one. The secret is they work. Every single day they get out and prospect. Look back at the last week and ask yourself, did I prospect every single day? Because a lot of agents I talk to, oh yeah, I go prospecting. Okay. Did you go prospecting last Monday? No, I didn't go prospecting last Monday. What about last Tuesday? Oh yeah, I went out for a couple hours on Tuesday. What about Wednesday? Well, Wednesday I took the day off. What about Thursday? Well, Thursday I got out there for a couple hours. Okay, what about Friday? No, I didn't go on Friday. Okay, so when you say you went prospecting, what you mean is out of a 40-hour work week, I worked 4 hours. See, what happens is if you're not careful, you can trick yourself into confusing busy with productive. And they're not the same thing. Busy and productive are not the same thing. They can be exact opposites, okay? So if you want to succeed, you got to have a schedule and a routine, and you just do the same thing every week over and over again, and make sure that then if you have a new idea, maybe you've been doing this for a while, somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I've got a network marketing opportunity, or I've got a new business you should try, or I've got something else you should do. Okay, that's fine. If you think that's a good deal for you, then let me give you a tip. Remember how we said 80% of your time is already scheduled at the beginning of the week? Well, that leaves you 20% of your time to work on this new idea or this new venture. Don't spend more than 20% of your time or money on that new venture until it's been proven for 3 months. Because what I found is, honestly, guys, if I had $10 for every agent that has left the merchant services industry to pursue a network marketing idea that has then dropped out of the network marketing idea 3 months later and come back to me, I would probably be making more money right now than I make on residual. And the reason why they make that mistake is because they don't have that structure. They don't have those boundaries on their time. You got to have boundaries. You got to say, look, I'm running this merchant services business. I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to get out there every day, and prospect. And if somebody wants to bring me a new idea, that's awesome. I'm excited about that new idea, and I'm going to try that out. Here's the times I have available. I'm going to try that out Tuesday afternoon for 3 hours. I'm going to try that out Thursday evening for 2 hours, and I'm going to try it out Friday evening for 4 hours. And let's see what I can do at that time, because the other time I have, that's actually already scheduled, and I'm already doing something there. Okay? That will help you. Trust me, that structure will help you a great deal. Life is like a cross-country trip. There are a lot of fun things to do along the way, but the most important task is driving. Imagine that you are hitting the road and you are going to take a trip from New York to California. There are a lot of amazing things that you would see along that trip. But the problem is, if all you do is spend all your time at the gift shop or at the first, sightseeing thing that you get to, and you don't spend any time driving, you're never going to get anywhere. And you're not going to see the things that you want to see, and you're not going to get to do the things that you want to do. So make sure that in life you don't forget to drive. Yes, there are some great things. There are some new opportunities. There are some great new ventures out there. There are some crazy ideas. But the most important thing you got to do is just live your life. You got to get up every week and say, look, I got to go to work today. Today I'm going to go make some money. Today I'm going to have a date with my wife. Today I'm going to do the things that I believe are important for me to do, and I'm going to do them every day this week. And then I've got some time where I'm going to read a cool book, or I'm going to watch some TV, or I'm going to do what I want to do. But I understand that in order for me to really have a productive, successful life, I have to spend a huge amount of my time just doing the things that I know are right to do. And that doesn't mean they have to be boring things. That's like I told Christina last night. I said, honestly, if somebody told me tomorrow you can go to work or you can go to the amusement park, I would rather go to work. There is nowhere that I would rather be right now than at work. I love work. I love what I do, but it's a grind. Sometimes it's a grind. You got to get to work and you got to do the work that you got to do. Okay? All right. What do you do every day, every week, every month, and every year? Think about that. Take some time to think about what do you want to do every day. There's a few tasks that you do every day that you should do every day. There's a few tasks you should do every week at a certain time. Put those in your schedule. There's a few things you should do every month. I'll give you an example of that. My wife and I have every month we get our residual check on the 1st, and so we get paid, and then we do our finances right after that. That's something we do every month. What about things you do every year? My wife and I have things on our schedule that we do every year, and so it's nice to just get in a rhythm of these things that we do. All right, let's talk about some practical scheduling. By the way, I'll answer questions here towards the end. If you got any questions, feel free to type them out over to the right, and I'll do my best to answer them. So start each week with a block schedule. Print it out, bring it with you everywhere. Use the same one each week so you can memorize it, okay? Now, let me explain what I mean by that. For those of you that don't know, you want to go in, before you know exactly what you're going to be doing, you want to create a block schedule that says, during these times, I'm going to be out prospecting. So you have that time in there. Then you say, okay, during these times, I'm going to do customer service. During these times, I'm going to be at home with my wife. During these times, I'm going to be doing administrative work, okay? During these times, I'm going to have a date with my boyfriend. Whatever it is, you've got that block schedule in place so that you know exactly what you're going to be doing with your week. And you're going to have to, of course, customize it a little bit. Over time, you're going to change some things. But as quickly as you can, get it to a point where you can have it virtually the same every week and memorize it. Because what will happen is, when a customer calls you and says, hey, I was wondering if you could come out and talk to me about something, I got a couple questions. If you don't have a block schedule memorized, you might say, sure, I'll come over there right now. Well, what if you were supposed to be prospecting right now? That messes up your day. It'd be better to say, hey, you know what? I know I'm going to be out in the area around 2 o'clock today. Does that work for you? And they'll say yes. See, what will happen is if you got a block schedule memorized and a routine to your week, then what will happen is you'll be able to put these things, automatically as things come in, you'll know where to put them. Somebody says, hey, I need this, I need that. Maybe your spouse needs you to do something. You know a good time where you can put that because you have your block schedule committed to memory. Or even on your phone, is better too. I have that as well. In your schedule, you want to have one color. Now, you want to have two different schedules. You want to have your block schedule. For those of you that use like Google Calendar, that's what I like because you can set up multiple calendars. So I have one calendar that's like a block calendar that says, generally speaking, like an outline. This is what I'm going to do each week. Then a second calendar is where I put in the actual hard appointments in there, okay? So on that calendar, we're going to put in different events. Now we have two different colors that we use. We use green for appointments that are what we call specific time events. In other words, if I have a phone call scheduled at 2, that's going to be in green on my calendar because I have to do it at 2. But if I have a task like think about this new project, that's going to be in blue because I can really move that around if I need to. And that will help to make your schedule a little bit more flexible. Last tip I'm going to give you on practical scheduling here. Hire yourself as an administrative assistant. Hire yourself as an administrative assistant. If you don't have enough money right now to hire an administrative assistant, you should go ahead and hire yourself. Send yourself emails about events and schedule time for your role as an administrative assistant, okay? Create a great system of procedures that can easily be taught to somebody else. So here's what I want to challenge you guys to do. First of all, let me explain that you can get an administrative assistant without spending a great deal of money. Many of you could know somebody who is maybe it's someone that's a stay-at-home mom or someone like that they're at home. They would love to have a job where they could work from home for 1 or 2 hours a day, and you could pay them $10 an hour, and they would work maybe 3 days a week for 2 hours a day. So 6 hours costs you $60 a week. You could have yourself an administrative assistant. But before you can do that, you need to get procedures in place. Figure out how you would want to handle things. Send yourself emails about events that you're going to have. Start to really organize your time. And let me give you another tip that we already talked about. If you're going to do this, you can't be relying on your brain to remember everything, because if you get an administrative assistant, she can't read your mind. So when somebody tells me they want me to do something, I don't even try to remember it. All I do is now I have an app on my phone called Vocanote. I click on it. I say, so-and-so wants me to do this at this time. I click send, and that sends an email to Angela, my administrative assistant. But before I had Angela, it sent a note to me. Okay? Because even before I had an administrative assistant, I didn't want to count on my own memory, because I wanted to create good systems for when I was able to hire an administrative assistant. If you feel like you're at the point where you could hire one, let me know that. I'd be glad to help you out with procedures and talk about, how to get this person to really be efficient and do the things that you need done. All right, let's talk about setting goals. We're getting done. I think I got 2 more slides after this one. Setting goals. Now this is kind of a silly little thing, but I just had to put it in here because it's simple, but a lot of people avoid the simple truths and they miss out on that. So your number one goal should be to do the right thing. I know, you think, oh brother, of course. But is it really? That should be your number one goal. What should you really be doing with your time, and do it? That's your number one goal. Number 2 goal is to repeat goal number 1 over and over and over and over again. Okay? There's only 2 things that really matter with your schedule, with your life. Number 1, do you know what's right to do, and you know what you should do? And number 2, do you have the discipline and character to do what you know you should do? What do you want to get from your business? This is really important. If you're going to set goals, what you want to do is start by identifying what are your goals. What do you want to get from your business? Do you want financial security? Do you want a large company? Do you want scheduling freedom? Do you want to make a lot of money? What are your goals? Now, understand that some of these goals don't work. For instance, if you want to build a large company, then you're not going to have scheduling freedom. You understand that? Because if you've got a really big company, then you're going to have to be there for that company. And so you're not going to have the scheduling freedom, okay? And so that's important. You got to understand what are your goals. So take a little bit of time to figure out, what do you really want to get out of this business? What is it that you want to get out of this business? Then think through a day and a week in your life once you have achieved your goals. Now, this is something I try to do once a year. It's a tradition. It's kind of something I do once a year. I take about 4 or 5 hours of time. And I know you're going to think this is pretty crazy, but try it sometime and you'll like it, okay? I take about 4 or 5 hours once a year, and I look at my life when I'm 40 is usually the time period I look at, either 40 or 50. And I ask myself, what goals do I want to accomplish when I'm 40 or 50? I write those down. Then what I do is I sit down, and to the best of my ability, I create a schedule for my week when I'm 40 years old or when I'm 50 years old, which for me is 10 or 20 years down the road, okay? So for me, I look at those times. For you, maybe it's something you look at just next year. If you're just getting started in this business, it'd be difficult to look 10 years out. You might try to look 6 months or 1 year out. So you write down what's going on in your day. What time do you get up? What'd you eat for breakfast? When you've achieved your goals, when your life is as you're imagining it. What do you do all day? What do you do all week? Put your schedule out and imagine yourself in that situation and ask yourself this question: what type of person am I at this point? Okay, in other words, if I want to be, if I want my company to grow to be doing $100 million in revenue a year, then I think about, what would that company look like? How many employees would I have? What kind of building would we be in? Then what I do is I look and say, what would I be doing that week? What kind of meetings would I be having? What type of knowledge would I need to have that I don't have right now? What would I be doing? What skill set would I need to have? What interpersonal skills would I need to develop that I don't have right now? Once you do that, start achieving your goals by doing the things that you would do if you achieved your goals. Let me say that again. Achieve your goals by doing the things that you would do if you achieved your goals. If you become the right person, then the goals will a lot of times take care of themselves. And that's really the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is to become the person you want to become, and your goals will take care of themselves. In other words, if you become the type of person that does get out of bed early in the morning and goes out prospecting every day, that type of person is going to succeed in this business. If you become the type of person that does set boundaries around your time, then you're naturally going to become more successful, and eventually you're going to have an administrative assistant. So the question isn't, I'm trying to achieve this big goal. Really what the goal you're trying to achieve is you're trying to become the person that would be able to achieve those goals. You're trying to become the person that would be able to handle those goals if they were achieved. A great man once said, dream of effort, not achievement. Dream, that's why I do that thing about the schedule, because I don't want to look at it and say, wow, when I'm 50 years old, if I had this much money, I'd be going on a cruise, and I can imagine myself buying a big house, and I can imagine myself in a Ferrari. Honestly, that doesn't really do much, because what you're doing is you're imagining this achievement. Think about the effort. Imagine what would you be doing at that point in your life? How much work would it be taking? And then start doing that work now, start becoming that person now, and that's going to help you a great deal. Are you the type of person that can handle the opportunity you want if it was dropped in your lap? I might say I want to be the president of the United States, but let's be honest. If I was the president of the United States tomorrow, our country would fall apart. And the reason why is because I have no idea how to be the president. There's a whole, there's all kinds of skills that are involved there that I don't have. There's all kinds of connections there that I don't have. So if I really wanted to become the president one day, which I don't, by the way, by any stretch, but if I did, well, what would I do? Well, I would start developing political connections, and I would start developing a better scheduling routine. I would start figuring out how to do negotiations better. Why? Because those are all important skills to become the president. So it's not about just achieving the goal of saying, I want to become this. It's about you becoming the person that you need to become in order to take advantage of the opportunity. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Many of you might look at your business and say, I wish I was making $2,000 a week, or approximately $8,000 a month. Maybe that's a goal of yours, and maybe in residual. You say, I'd like to make that much in residual income. Okay, well, what would you do with that? If you made $2,000 a week, how would you spend that money? What would you do with it specifically? Make a budget. Plan out how you would spend that money. Start to think about it. If you can think about it in your mind, it's going to start to become a reality, and then you're going to start trying to accomplish that reality. So imagine it in your mind. Imagine the type of person you would be. What kind of budget would you have? How would you change the way you handle your finances if you were making $2,000 a week? And then start doing those things. And what you'll find out is when you start doing those things, next thing you know, you might be making $2,000 a week. If you had 200 accounts, could you service them well? What are your procedures for customer support? Do you have good procedures in place, or are your customers all upset because you've got 20 customers and you can't keep them happy? Well, why is that? Okay, you need to get some help. You need to get these procedures in place. You need to talk to me or Jonathan Ruiz and get some procedures in place, because if you've got 20 customers and 5 of them are upset, how are you really going to handle 200? So it doesn't matter if your goal is to have 200 customers. The important thing is, do you have a business that can handle 200 customers? If you got an administrative assistant, would they know what to do? Are you ready to train them? A lot of guys I talk to, they'll say, oh man, Angela's incredible. She gets all this stuff done for you. And she does. She does amazing work. And they say, man, I wish I could get an administrative assistant. Okay, well, let me explain something to you. Did you know that before I hired Angela as an administrative assistant, did you know that I had 20 or 30 screenshot videos showing exactly how I handle all of the different types of emails I get, exactly how to do all the different tasks that I wanted her to do to start out? Before I hired her, I made those videos. And it's funny because in the videos, I just say on there, I don't say Angela, I say, welcome to, I was making the video for me. And so I would go back and I would watch that video to remember how I wanted to do something, and I followed those procedures. Well, guess what? When I hired Angela, man, it was easy. There was hardly any training involved. It was like, welcome aboard. Here's 25 videos. Watch them and do what it says. An email. Hope you have a great day.